Hello, dear listeners. This is your favorite storyteller and hopeless romantic, Gwen Fairfax. You are welcome to my creative heaven where I bring you the best of my imagination, take your mind away from the troubles of the world, and tame your heart with fiction, romance, and drama. This is your first time stopping on this safe space, you are most welcome. I promise that you will love it here. But if you are an oldie but goodie, thank you for your continuous support and love. You are loved and appreciated. Please like, subscribe, and leave your thoughts in the comments. Buckle your seatbelts as we take a ride on another amazing episode of your favorite story, Unappreciated Treasure. Enjoy. After Laura's encounter with Nicole in the bathroom, she walked over to Chelsea's office. When Chelsea saw her, she was both surprised and excited. She got up and called out surprisingly, "Laura? When did you get here?" She walked over and gave Laura a hug. Everyone in the office was surprised. Cleopatra, the drama queen, stood there frozen. She pointed at Laura and spoke in a daze. "Erica, is that not Laura Mendez? The international model, actress, and last year's winner of Miss Universe? Please tab me and let me know it is not a dream." Erica, who was surprised to see Laura too, answered excitedly, "Yes, Cleo. She is definitely the one." Laura was well known both nationally and internationally. She was not only known as Daniel Maximilian's girlfriend, but she was also known and considered as their national treasure for representing Great Britain at the Miss Universe beauty pageant and bringing home the crown. With a surprising voice, Chelsea asked, "How did you know where to find me?" Laura just gave a warm smile and responded, "Daniel told me where to find you. I have missed you, so I decided to come check on you." Chelsea looked at Laura with endearing eyes and responded, "Oh, Laura. Thanks for coming to check on me. I am certain we have a lot of catching up to do." Laura just nodded and said, "That is why I came here to take you out to lunch. Have you had lunch?" Chelsea shook her head and said, "Not yet. Was about going to the canteen to have lunch." Laura smiled. "Perfect then. Let's go out to lunch. We have a lot of catching up to do." As Chelsea was picking up her purse, Nicole walked in and was surprised to see that Laura was this close to Chelsea. Nicole's face turned livid when she saw Chelsea and Laura being this close and friendly. "Why is this stupid girl always having the favor of everyone? I hate her. I hate her so much," Nicole thought as she cursed Chelsea in her heart. When Laura turned and saw Nicole standing by her desk, she scoffed and said to Chelsea, "Chelsea, I think you have to be careful around here. You have so many snakes that are ready to bite you behind your back. So watch out because they are very venomous." As Laura spoke, everyone turned and looked at Nicole. Nicole's face turned pale as she clenched her fists. Chelsea smiled at Laura and said softly, "I know, dear. They can only hiss and not bite." They both chuckled and walked out of the room. Nicole's expression turned ferocious. If one could open her head to see what was inside, one would see the Third World War going on in her head. In the corner standing was Cassandra Miles, a member of Team A. She spoke with mouth still agape in surprise. "Was that not Laura Mendez? Since when is this close to Chelsea? Why is it that everyone always takes her out for lunch? Yesterday she went out with Miss Anderson and today it is Laura Mendez. The Laura Mendez. I really envy her." Nicole just gave Cassandra a bombastic side eye. This sent chills down Cassandra's spine. She just stuttered and said nervously, "I think I should go back to my desk. I still have a lot to do." She quickly rushed back to her desk. Meanwhile, on the other side of town, Hank was sitting in the conference room with his subordinates. Hank had a cold aura which could freeze the air below zero. The room had a tense atmosphere which made everyone in the room break into a cold sweat. Hank had not been around for 4 weeks, and thus was going through the various department reports. The different head managers were so quiet that they were even threatening not to breathe. Hank turned to one of his managers and asked coldly, "George Bickerley, is this why I pay you? What is this? So if I am not around, you can't do anything right?" George Berkeley, who was the manager of the IT department, stuttered and said nervously, "Mr. Fitzwilliam, I am so sorry. I will do the report all over again." Hank looked at him with eyes that could send his spirit to oblivion. He spoke deeply and coldly. "And why should I give you a second chance? If I based my decisions on second chances, the Fitzwilliam Group wouldn't be what it is today." George Berkeley was sweating profusely. He felt as if he was burning in an ice-cold room. He knew that was the end of his career at the Fitzwilliam Group. Suddenly, a phone started ringing. Who was the unfortunate soul who left his or her phone without silencing it? Everyone knew that Mr. Fitzwilliam never tolerated any phone ringing during his meetings. The unfortunate person was in big trouble. Surprisingly for everyone, it was Hank's phone ringing. Something that had never happened before. Even more surprisingly was the smile that was on Hank's face when he saw the caller ID. Everyone was thunderstruck. Was this the same cold and aloof Mr. Fitzwilliam who had never smiled before, smiling like a quokka? What was going on here? And who was making him smile this much? The room was as quiet as a graveyard. Suddenly, Hank answered with a gentle and soft husky voice. "Hey, beautiful. Missed me already?" Chelsea, on the other side of the line, answered in her sweet voice. "Hey, Pookie Bear. Course you know I miss you. So tell me, are you busy?" Hank shook his head and said, "No, darling. I am not. You can tell me what it is." Everyone was in total shock. They were in the middle of a crucial report session and he said he wasn't busy? Who was this person that made Hank act out of character? Hank's subordinates asked themselves. Chelsea said softly on the phone, "Anyway, if you have nothing to do this evening, let's have dinner at my place tonight. Is that okay?" Hank just answered, I will be there." Chelsea giggled and said, "Okay, Pookie Bear. 7 o'clock. Don't be a minute late else I will punish you." Hank just smiled and replied, "'Kay, ma'am. I won't be late. I have to go now. See you later." He ended the call and went back to his cold mood. How could someone switch from light to darkness in a matter of seconds? Hank turned and looked at George Berkeley with cold, piercing eyes. "I will give you all until tomorrow morning to fix this and present it on my desk before I get to work." He stood up and walked out of the room. Gina followed him with his briefcase. The room, which had been silent like a graveyard, started functioning once more. There were chattering noises in the room. Everyone was curious to find out who the mysterious lady was. Who was the person Mr. Fitzwilliam was talking to? Does Mr. Fitzwilliam have a girlfriend? One of the managers asked curiously. The day had come to an end, and Chelsea had hurried back to her apartment to make dinner. Earlier on, she had called Daniel to ask him for a favor. When the call got connected, Daniel answered cheekily, "Now my sister-in-law has finally remembered me. And you finally called me today. I hope I am not in trouble." Chelsea laughed hysterically and replied, "Come on, Daniel, or should I say Sir Maximilian?" Daniel smirked and asked, "So what is it that little Miss Fairy wants from me?" Chelsea stuttered before asking, Well, I wish to ask if you know what Hank's favorite meal is. I am trying to make him some dinner." Daniel was surprised. Ever since he knew Hank had never eaten anywhere else aside from his grandmother's house and his private chef cooking for him. With a surprised tone, he asked, "What? Did Hank say he was going to eat at your place?" Chelsea nodded and replied calmly, "Yes. Why? Doesn't he eat out?" Daniel gave a gentle laughter and responded, "Well, my dear Chelsea, Hank is not just someone who eats somewhere else. When it comes to food, he is very picky and choosy. But I know he likes spicy food like pilaf rice with mushroom and steak medium rare. Chelsea grinned and said happily, "Thank you, Daniel. I owe you one." She quickly ended the call and rushed to the market to get some groceries. When she returned from the grocery store, it was already 5 p.m. She had barely 2 hours to cook everything and get ready before Hank's arrival. She quickly rushed into the kitchen and started cooking. She washed and placed her rice in a pot to cook. Then she washed and cut her vegetables ready to be stir-fried. Her steak was the last thing to cook, because she wanted it to be fresh, tender, and juicy once Hank arrived. Chelsea was great at cooking because she learned it from her father. And steak was her father's specialty. He knew how to cook it so well that Chelsea learned too. After she was done cooking, she ensured everything was set. She then rushed into the bathroom for a shower. It was already 6:40 p.m., and Hank had just finished going through his last document of the day. He picked up his phone and dialed Gina's number. When the call got connected, he asked Gina to get the car ready, for they were going to Chelsea's apartment. Hank had asked Gina to get a bouquet of blue, white, and orange tulips for Chelsea. On their way to Chelsea's apartment, Hank could not help but wonder what Chelsea was cooking. He was not one to eat at just any place, but he was looking forward to eating at Chelsea's apartment. He was not misophobic, but he was just trying to be careful because he had lots of enemies everywhere. If they couldn't target him physically, they could try it through poison. At exactly 7 p.m., there was a knock on Chelsea's door. Chelsea smiled and rushed over to the door. When she opened the door and saw Hank standing with a bouquet of her favorite flowers, she gave a smile that could lift anyone's sorrow. She was wearing a black plunged neck drawstring split thigh dress. Her long curly hair was let loose, and it fell on her back and shoulders. Chelsea wore a dark mauve lipstick, which made her look extremely attractive. This was the first time Hank had ever seen her with that lip color, and he was burning to just rip off the dress from Chelsea's body and devour her completely. He stood there looking lost while staring at Chelsea. Chelsea had intentionally dressed that way to capture Hank's attention, and she pretty much did. In a breathy and sultry voice, Chelsea asked, "Will you just stand there gawking at me, or will you come inside?" Hank, with a lecherous smile on his face, bit his lip and walked in. He held Chelsea's waist with one hand, bent down and gave her a gentle kiss on the lips. He lifted, gazed into her eyes. He muttered softly, "You look truly beautiful, Chelsea." He handed her the bouquet of flowers and said, "These are for you." Chelsea took the flowers and sniffed them. With a smile, she replied, "Thank you, Pookie Bear. You actually know they are my favorite." Chelsea walked over to the kitchen and grabbed a glass vase. She put the flowers in them and walked back to Hank. "Hank, please come over and let's eat." Hank took off his suit jacket and walked over to the table that was set for two, with candles and a variety of his favorite meals. When Hank saw what Chelsea had prepared, he was surprised. With a little scoff, he asked, "Darling, how did you know pilaf rice with mushrooms is one of my favorite meals?" Chelsea just smiled and responded, "I do have my way of doing things, Pookie Bear. So please sit down and dig in." Hank sat down and Chelsea served him some rice and veggies. When Hank tasted the rice, he closed his eyes to savor the food. "This is so good. The last time I ate something like this was a long time ago. Tastes so much like that of my mother's. Where did you learn to cook this well?" Chelsea smiled and responded, "Well, my dad used to cook so well, so he taught us how to cook. Back in France, he used to cook for us every evening. So my brother was usually out playing video games and I was in the kitchen with him. But after he passed away, things were never the same again." There was a glimpse of sadness in her eyes as she spoke. Hank stretched his hand and held Chelsea's hand. "I am so sorry about your dad." Chelsea let out a painful smile. "That's okay. It's been more than 6 years. I guess I have finally come to terms with the reality that he isn't around anymore." Hank looked at her and asked, "So where is your mom?" Chelsea's countenance changed to that of fury, and she quickly snapped out of it. She let out a heavy sigh and said, "I don't have a mother." She quickly switched back and said excitedly, "Why don't you try the steak and tell me what you think?" Hank knew that Chelsea didn't want to talk about it and decided not to probe further. He picked up his knife and fork and cut a piece of the steak and placed it in his mouth. The flavor, texture, and taste were all combined into one word: perfection. He looked at Chelsea for a while and said huskily, "Darling, you are not only beautiful, kind, and compassionate. You are an amazing cook too. I must have done something good that the universe blessed me with an amazing woman like you." Chelsea grinned. "Don't be so cheeky." After eating, they spent the entire evening sipping wine and just conversing. Shortly, Hank moved closer to Chelsea and looked into her face. He bent down and kissed her softly. He raised his head and looked into Chelsea's eyes. With a smoky voice, he muttered, "Chelsea, I want you." He kissed her lips again and slowly moved to her neck. This sent chills down her spine. She couldn't help but moan as his hands started moving from her waist upward towards her twin peaches. Before they could go further, Hank's phone suddenly rang. He pretended not to have heard it ring. As they were caught up in the moment, Hank's phone rang again. Chelsea reluctantly pushed Hank to stop with the smooching. With a heavy breath, she said, "Hank, come on. Pick up. It could be something important." Hank gnashed his teeth as he spoke in between gritted teeth. "It better be something important, else I will skin someone alive." He reluctantly picked up the phone and said sternly, "What is it?" Daniel was at the other end of the line. He spoke worriedly. "Hank, where are you? Nana has been rushed to the hospital." When Hank heard this, his eyes were wide open. The intimate thoughts on his mind suddenly vanished as he asked worriedly, "What happened to Grandma?" "I don't know, Hank. I just received news from Martha that she passed out. I am on my way to the hospital now. Let's meet there." Martha was Grandma Julia's housekeeper. She had worked for Grandma Julia for so many years. Hank ended the call and said with a hoarse voice, "Darling, I have to go now. My grandmother has been rushed to the hospital. I need to go over there and see things for myself. I will see you tomorrow, okay?" Chelsea stood up and said, "No, Hank. I am coming with you. Let's go together." Hank shook his head and said, "No, Chelsea. It's late already and you have to go to work tomorrow. Let me get there and I will keep you posted, okay?" Chelsea just nodded and replied, "Okay. Please be safe." Hank nodded and picked up his jacket and left. Chelsea sat down with a worried look on her face. With a shaky voice, she muttered to herself, "Oh God, please let nothing happen to Hank's grandmother. Let her be fine and healthy." When Hank arrived at the Mount Olives Hospital, he walked over to his grandmother's private suite and saw her sleeping on the bed. Daniel was already there, sitting by Grandma Julia's bedside. With a deep voice, Hank asked, "Where is Dr. Montague?" Before Daniel could answer, Dr. Montague walked in, and Hank asked with concern laced in his voice, "What is wrong with my grandmother?" Dr. Montague tapped Hank's shoulder and replied, "Clam down, okay? It is nothing serious, Hank. She suffered from orthostatic hypotension, which is a quick drop in blood pressure. She felt lightheaded and passed out. So she just needs to rest and will be going home by morning." Hank let out a sigh of relief. "Thank you, Dr. Montague." Dr. Montague spoke and left the room. He went and sat by Grandma Julia's bed. Then suddenly his phone chimed and it was a message from Chelsea. "Hey Hank. How is your grandmother? I hope she is fine and it is nothing too serious." Hank stood up and walked out of the room. He dialed Chelsea's number and she picked up almost immediately. "Hank, how is your grandmother?" she asked in one breath. "Hey, beautiful. It is nothing serious. She is fine now. The doctor said she would be going home by morning, Hank replied dotingly. Hank could hear a sigh of relief as Chelsea muttered, "Thank God. I guess I should let you spend some time with her. I will talk to you tomorrow, okay?" Hank nodded and said, "I love you, Chelsea." Chelsea muttered softly, "I love you too, Hank." The call ended and Hank went back into Grandma Julia's room. After Chelsea ended the call with Hank, she felt relieved to know that Grandma Julia was fine. She cleared the dining table, washed everything and placed the plates back where they belonged. When she got to bed, she couldn't help but reminisce what had almost happened before Hank's phone suddenly rang. She couldn't help but blush. She placed her hand on her lips and could still feel Hank's cologne on her. She took in a deep breath and forced herself to sleep. It was the next day and Chelsea had gone back to work as usual. That morning, she and Erica had gone over to Harvey International to meet and discuss the logistics. They had spent all morning and part of the afternoon discussing the final details of the upcoming event. Meanwhile, on the other side of town, Amelia Johnson, the head manager of the PR department, Cassandra and Nicole had gone over to Fitzwilliam Group. When they got in, Nicole and Cassandra were surprised. Everything at the Fitzwilliam Group was grand and different from Maximilian Holdings. The building, for one, was way taller, bigger, and more luxurious than Maximilian Holdings. Even the workers there had a certain degree of confidence and pride visible when they walked by. Anyone could tell that here, everyone knew what they were doing and that hard work and perfection was their watchword. As Nicole and Cassandra stood there talking, Hank and Gina walked into the building. Hank's majestical steps made him look like a Greek god. Even though he walked through that same door every day and they saw him every day, every worker still gawked and swooned over him. Two receptionists greeted Hank as he walked by. "Good morning, Mr. Fitzwilliam." Hank just nodded and walked into the CEO's private elevator. Two receptionists murmured among themselves lustfully, "Oh my goodness. Mr. Fitzwilliam is always radiant as the sun. See as he carries himself and moves like he is being led by a chariot. I wish I could have a man like him. His girlfriend should be very lucky. I truly envy the woman who has his heart. She is truly lucky." The other receptionist turned and replied, "But I haven't seen him with a woman ever. I don't think he has a girlfriend. He has never been spotted out with any woman. He only hangs out with his close friends and cousin. He is so mysterious." The first receptionist, with a little sadness on her face, wished she could be Hank's woman, even just for a day. She would climb every mountain and swim every ocean to make her fantasy become a reality. Her companion looked at her and laughed sarcastically. "Come on. Don't be such a pick-me girl. Do you think Mr. Fitzwilliam will even spare a glance at you? Dream on." Two girls went back to what they were doing. In a corner standing was Nicole. She had never seen Hank before. The day Hank went to Maximilian Holdings, she had not seen him. She only heard her colleagues mentioning how fine and good-looking he was. Back then, she paid no attention to it because her target was Daniel. But seeing him today made Nicole's world spin around. She stood there looking struck. Talking of love at first sight, this was the perfect description. She thought she liked Daniel. But after Daniel hadn't paid her any attention, she realized that she was only lusting after his good looks and wealth. But looking at Hank, it was different. She had a sense of déjà vu. It seemed as if this scene had happened before. As Hank walked towards the elevator, their eyes accidentally met. This sent a spine-tingling feeling, and her palms were all sweaty, making the hair on her arms stand up. This caused her to blink several times like a complete idiot. Cole saw fireworks going all around her as Hank walked into the elevator and the door closed. Yes, that was it. The moment her whole life had been building up to. She had finally found the one. This time around, it was not all about looks and money. Her heart experienced something it had never felt before. Nicole had dated so many men before, but none of them had ever made her heart flutter like this. Nicole. Why do you look lost? Let's go, Cassandra muttered, and she nudged Nicole with her elbow. Nicole was jolted back to earth as she placed her hand on her beating chest. This was so unlike Nicole. Nicole, are you okay? Why are you acting so weird? Cassandra asked curiously. Nicole cleared her throat and answered. Yeah, I am fine. Just excited to be here, Nicole said with an embarrassing smile. They all walked into the conference room with the other public relations team members from Fitzwilliam Group. All through the meeting, Nicole's mind was on Hank. She had even zoned out a couple of times. As the meeting came to an end, Amelia stood up and shook hands with the PR head manager from Fitzwilliam Group. Miss Johnson, that was a great proposal from your team. I am excited to see us work together on this trans-union project, said the man. Amelia just nodded and replied firmly. Looking forward to that, Mr. Ramirez. Cole had excused herself to use the bathroom. Mr. Ramirez smiled and said happily, Well, everyone, Mr. Fitzwilliam has a few words to give us. So please hold on for a little while. Cole was done and on her way back to the conference room. Before she could bend into the corridor leading to the conference room, she bumped into someone. As she thought she was about to hit the floor, a pair of sturdy hands held her up. When she lifted her head to see who it was, it seemed as if her heart stopped beating for a second. The person holding her was Hank. A firm, serious, and authoritative voice said, Young lady, watch where you are going to. Cole, who was still in disbelief, stuttered. I am sorry, sir. Hank, with a stern voice, asked if she could let go of his jacket. Nicole didn't realize she was still holding on to Hank's jacket and immediately let go. Hank and Gina walked past Nicole and Gina continued with her report as they walked. Nicole couldn't believe she had actually come in contact with Hank. Her heart was in so much joy. She looked down and saw something shiny on the floor. She picked it up and saw that it was a single cuff with the letter F engraved with diamonds. It must have come from Hank's shirt after the collision. Cole held it tight and walked back to the conference room. Shortly after sitting down, Hank and Gina walked in and everyone stood up to greet Hank. But he just raised his hand, ushering everyone to sit down. Hank wasn't one to waste time, so he delved straight into what he had to say. With his usual aloof and cold expression, he said sternly, This project is very important for Maximilian Holdings, and as a subsidiary of the Fitzwilliam Group, it has to be carried out to perfection. Mr. Ramirez walked up to Hank and gave him a file containing what they had talked about. Hank just nodded and said nothing. Gina, who had been quiet all through, said, Well, everyone, Mr. Fitzwilliam wants to thank you all for your hard work. So he has organized lunch for you all at Maison H. Immediately you leave here, you can all drive down to Maison H. Everyone was excited and all shouted simultaneously, Thank you, Mr. Fitzwilliam. Hank just nodded, stood up and left the conference room. All along as Hank was talking, Nicole looked at Hank's hand and discovered that the single cufflink she was holding was actually his. She held it tight and just smiled. She had something that belonged to him. Only if Nicole knew that the man she had fallen in love with was actually Chelsea's man. As Hank and Gina left the conference room, they drove down to the lighthouse where Clarissa was kept. A few days before, Clarissa had been apprehended by Hank's men. She had been kept at the lighthouse awaiting her punishment. She was tied to a chair in her bra and panties only. With a sharp voice, she shouted, Hey you! Get me out of here! You don't know who I am. My brother will never forgive you. He will make sure you pay for this. The room was cold and quiet, which made the atmosphere eerie. Clarissa was so scared, which made her shiver. Suddenly, she heard the lock on the door unlocking. Footsteps could be heard walking majestically in the room. As she raised her head, she saw Hank standing there with two topless, hefty men. She smiled and thought Hank had come to rescue her. But when she saw the cold and deadly stare coming from Hank's eyes, the smile on her face froze. Seemed as if the temperature in the room had suddenly dropped to below zero. Hank took a step forward towards Clarissa and said nothing. His stare was so cold and intense that Clarissa could feel it in her soul. Clarissa stuttered. "Ha, Hank. You came to save me?" she asked shakily. Hank let out an evil laughter which sent chills down Clarissa's spine. She could not help but shiver even more. Hank looked like a beast. No, this man looked like the devil himself. In a cold and stern voice which sounded like a whisper, Hank said, "Came to save you, huh? Do I look like a joke to you?" Hank scoffed and gave a deadly stare at Clarissa. With his voice an octave deeper, he said coldly, "Clarissa, I told you to stay off Chelsea and me, but you didn't heed to my advice. Now I will show you what hell looks like. Since you are so obsessed with me and would want to have sex with me so badly, I think I should grant your request." He turned to the two hefty men standing by him and said coldly, "She is all yours." He turned and left. The footsteps kept echoing in the room as he walked away. Clarissa cried and wept bitterly. "No, Hank. Please don't leave me here all alone with these men. Please come back. I am sorry. I will never bother you and Chelsea ever again. Please, Hank, don't leave me here alone with these dangerous men." All her crying and pleading fell on deaf ears because Hank was already gone. The two men looked at Clarissa and had a satisfying look on their faces. What kind of trouble had Clarissa found herself in? Will she be able to escape her fate? To know what happens next on the series, stay tuned for another exciting episode of your favorite series Unappreciated Treasure, which will be coming soon. Thank you for listening. Toodles.